identity, and interest-based conflicts. As the vanguards of the world's wisdom traditions, religious leaders are called to come into a consensus around universal principles that recognize the spiritual and interconnected nature of all peoples. We believe that an ethic that acknowledges and upholds these truths is the key to transforming conflict and building a culture of moderation and lasting peace. Here we explore the commonly held principles and values in the various faith traditions in search of this ideal. So I want to introduce today our moderator. He's the gentleman sitting at the table, Dr. Ahmed Farouk Musa. He's the chairman, the founder and director of the Islamic Renaissance Front, an intellectual movement and a think tank focusing on youth empowerment and the promotion of intellectual discourse and reformation. He has been involved in interfaith dialogues, especially related to Christian-Muslim relations, and also intrafaith dialogues, especially the Shiite-Sunni discourse. He writes a column for the Islamic Party official organ and other established web portals like Malaysia Kini, the Malaysian Insider, and Free Malaysia Today. Dr. Ahmed Farouk is an academician at Monash University, Malaysian campus, and is also a trained cardiothoracic surgeon. Welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we'll be discussing about a very important issue toward a global ethic for inclusive and moderate societies. I think yesterday we had a very interesting session about mitigating religious extremism, and Imam Shamsi Ali and our ambassador were there, and I guess this is a good continuation of what we had started yesterday, basically because we know that nowadays everywhere in this world, there are always differing forces, right? A force that basically promotes democracy and moderation, and the opposing force that basically trying to champion what we call as extremist ideologies and fundamentalism. As you all are aware that probably because we are in Malaysia and as a leader for the global movement of moderates, so we want this to be like basically a discourse and decide and discuss whether we are really moderates or not in our country, and also our image to the world at large. So I guess because we have 5 panelists, and better start the ball rolling, and I won't be introducing one by one, but I'll be introducing them at the beginning of their speech so that it won't take so much time. I think I would like to first call the person on my right. Imam Shamsi Ali, Chair of the Board of Trustees of the ASEAN Muslim Federation of North America. He's the Director of Jamaica Muslim Center in Queens and served as an advisory board member to many interfaith organizations, including the Tenenbaum Center, Federation for Middle East Peace. He is also chair of the board of trustees of the ASEAN Muslim Federation of North America, and currently, along with other interfaith leaders in the New York City, he founded UNCC, Universal Clergy Coalition International, and he was appointed as Ambassador for Peace by the International Religious Federation in 2002, and a recipient of ICLI Interfaith Award in the year 2008. Yes, Imam.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me start by this one, that in memory of a man who dedicated his life to his God and his people, a man that we are lucky to live during his lifetime, a hero of our century, Honorable Nelson Mandela. I would like to begin this presentation by quoting 2 famous of his sayings. Number 1, and I quote, "The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." And second, he said, "If man can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human's heart than its opposite." Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, in talking about a more inclusive and moderate society, there are 4 reminders I'd like to mention at this time. 4 reminders, briefly, really a reminder. Number 1, there is a tendency in our world today to say that in order for a society to be moderate, there must be a process of spiritualization. In other words, looks like in order for our society to be moderate, God must be marginalized. And in fact, there is a systemic attempt to reduce and even to portray the image that religions are obstacles and even poisons to our advancements and modern civilization. To respond to this, I would like to remind us all that God is beautiful and He loves beauty. In the language of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Inna Allaha jamilun yuhibbul jamal. That Allah is beautiful, loves beauty. For me, moderation is beautiful. Moderation is attractive. Moderation is sweet. Extremism is ugly and scary. Hence, God can never ever be claimed to represent that ugliness in our society. The question possibly is how to relate to the fact that many who represent extremist behaviors in our society are in fact seemingly so religious, and oftentimes in their expression of such behaviors, they claim to be the representatives of religions and God. There are 2 possible answers to this. Number 1, the childishness or immaturity in their claimed religiosity. I don't know if any of you have observed the kids. They are emotionally unstable, easily angry, overreacting, and so on and so forth. Peoples of religion who are easily angry are in fact immature. They are childish in their claimed religiosity. Secondly, as I expressed on many occasions, there's such people who claim to represent God. In fact, they are wrong in their representations, and in fact, they are worshiping wrong gods. And that's what God reminds us in the Holy Quran. When He said, Ya Ahl al-Kitab, Qul Ya Ahl al-Kitab, Ta'alaw ila kalimatin sawa'in baynana wa baynakum an la na'buda illallah. And remember this one, O people of the book. And the Holy Quran gives a very beautiful term to the people of the book, Ahl. And it means family. So people of revelations are considered in Islam are our own families. Jews, Christians, and others who claim to have revelations, they are our own families. قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا, come to the same platform, to the same ground. What that ground is, Allah na'buda illallah. Shouldn't we worship but Allah? Why God reminds us, shouldn't we worship but Allah? Because many people, instead of worshiping God, they are worshiping their own egos, they are worshiping their own human whims, they are worshiping their own religious affiliations. And I mentioned this yesterday. That is the cause why some extremists claim to represent God and claim to be the most even religious in our society. But in fact, they are wrong in their religiosity. This is the answer to that. The second reminder that I would like to mention today, that God has created humans out of His image. Out of His image is mostly popular among our Christians and Jewish brothers and sisters. But in Islam, don't forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَتَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ. That humans are created on the fitra, on the nature and the purity of God. So we have the same concept. What I would like to remind us all here, when God says that humans are created out of God's image, out of God's fitra, out of God's purity, number 1, that every time you see humans, see them first as godly. They are spiritual beings in physical bodies, as someone mentioned that last night. Secondly, my brothers and sisters, that God has given them inherently dignity. This is not a human dignity. This is not a social given dignity. This is a godly, divinely given dignity. And in no way anybody has the right to take it from them. Every human being is being dignified, and the Holy Quran mentioned that clearly when God says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. It is not because of your wealth. It is not because of your race. It is not because of your ethnicity and skin color. It is because God gave us that dignity, and no one has the right to take it from us. Number 3, this verse reminds us that humans without any exceptions are born free. Freedom, my brothers and sisters, is godly given. And by no means any humans can take it from us. I still remember the story of As ibn Amr, the son of Amr ibn As. When he had a Jew in Egypt at the time, simply because he was defeated in a horse race. And this incident arrived to Umar, and Umar was so upset, radiallahu anhu, the caliph at the time. And he said to him, since when you are given freedom to isti'bad, to enslave the people, and they have been born to this world freely? My brothers and sisters, freedom is godly given, and no one can take it from us. The third reminder I'd like to mention today, that our world has become globalized more than ever. More than ever. And either we want or not, you must be a part of that global village. There are 3 main characteristics of global village today. Probably some of you have taken a picture right now and uploaded it on the Facebook. My friend in New York is watching right now. There's Samsi Ali speaking in Malaysia. That is the speed that we have today. Number 2, competition. I'm not going to talk about this, but I'm going to talk the third characteristic of the global village, and that is interconnectedness. In other words, my brothers, no single human being, no single groups of people, no single nation, even the United States of America, that is claimed to be the sole superpower of the world, cannot live without the others. We are interconnected. We are interdependent. And for that reason, there is only one choice to choose in our life today, and that is to work together, to build partnership, to cooperate. But that at-ta'awun in Arabic language cannot happen without what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu. And from my Arab brothers and sisters, you understand that the word at-ta'aruf is not only to know, but you have to go beyond just knowledge. It is about to building an understanding. It is about to build at-tarahum, compassion. It is about to build at-ta'awun, partnership. But beyond that, it is about to build at-ta'athur, and that is our ability to defend one another. And by the way, by no means to promote my book, but you have the book on your right, the moderator. I just published this book a month ago. This is a book that talks about our partnership, and not only partnership, but our commitment to defend one another. The Jews defend the Muslims in the United States, and Muslims are committed to defend the Jewish friends when they are suffering anti-Semitism in our community. This is what we call al-ithar in Arabic language, and we need it in this world full of tension. Number 4, my brothers and sisters, and this is the final reminder. Let me again back to what Honorable Nelson Mandela reminded us. The brave man is not who does not feel afraid. We feel afraid sometimes. But he who conquers that fear. And then he said, if man can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human's heart than its opposite. 2 points I would like to point out here. Number 1, we need courage. We need braveness. We need to conquer our fear to stand and to challenge the tendencies of extremism in our society. It is not the time anymore to throw accusations and blames to others, but each one of us must be courageous to stand and challenge that tendency in our respective communities. As a Muslim, I do feel that I have a huge responsibility to speak out against extremism and radicalism within my own communities. And I would like to remind finally to the Muslims and non-Muslims alike that one of the many challenges that we need to take is the challenge of understanding our own religious text. For Arab brothers and sisters who are here, you know what the Quran says, لَن تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُم. The Jews and Christians will never be pleased. How are you going to say this in front of the Jews and Christians? As a Muslim living in the United States of America, it will be an embarrassment for me if I have Mark Schneier to my right as a Jew and John, who happened to be a Christian and Catholic, as my neighbors. And one day they said, Shamsi Ali, we have been neighbors for 3 years, you never smiled to me. I said to him, my friend, I cannot smile to you. He said, why? I will say to them, this is what my Quran says. I cannot be friend with you because you are a threat to me. You will never be pleased with me. Can I understand that Quran today in this globalized world? This is the challenge. And we need courage to reread, to understand our text within a proper context. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Imam Shamsi Ali. And Imam just reminded us about the interconnectedness between us, irrespective of where we come from. Basically, the world is now flat. We are, what he mentioned just now, whatever he says is probably could be viewed in the States itself. And he reminded us about the important thing about being to have a dignity conferred by God upon all of us. And the important thing as human beings, irrespective of our race and our religion, is the concept of lita'arafu. There is to know and beyond that between each other. Not only between Muslim and non-Muslims, even among the Muslims themselves, even the Sunni and Shiites, we see the divide is getting wider and wider nowadays. And what is happening in the Middle East, in Pakistan, in Iraq, and a few other places, I mean, we are feeling it now in this country, right? There have not been any killings of Shiite, but I do not know what is going to happen in the future. Looking at the animosity being created towards the Shiite in this country. Yeah, I think without further ado, I'd like to invite Reverend John Namanza Nearing, a bishop, Roman Catholic of Kano. He's a Catholic bishop of Kano in northwest Nigeria. He's also a chairman of the Department of Mission and Dialogue of the Catholic Bishop Conference of Nigeria. Bishop Nearing is also a former member of the Nigeria Interreligious Council, one of the foremost interreligious bodies in Nigeria.
Your Excellencies, my brothers and sisters, first of all, I would like to pray that the soul of the late Madiba, Nelson Mandela, rest in peace. The theme of this year's convention, Unity in Diversity, Building Social Cohesion for Sustainable Peace through Universal Aspirations, Principles, and Values, is intrinsically linked with the idea that peace is security, justice, and integral human development. We all strive for peace. The great African Christian writer and bishop, St. Augustine of Hippo, who lived in Annaba, Algeria, between 354 and 430, wrote, "For the sake of peace, even wars are fought." For us, peace is a universal value which has no frontiers. It has no interest in north-south or east-west divides. There is only and only but one peace for all. All the comments that we make about the world concerning character and creativity, fundamental human rights and religious freedom, mutual respect and interreligious dialogue, progress in community and national development indicate that peace is one of the supreme benefits of the human family on earth and the goal of human destiny in the life hereafter. The human family is not a mere expression of racial and ethnic diversity. Neither is it a unity of religious beliefs and ideologies. Rather, it is a unity in diversity. The concept of unity in diversity goes back to St. Augustine. Reflecting on biblical revelation, Augustine concluded that God himself endowed the human family with the essential character of, in Latin, in pluribus unitas, unity in diversity or unity in plurality. So the human family is fundamentally a multiracial and cultural, multi-faith and value society. The themes of unity and diversity are quite distinct but inseparable elements. As promoters of global peace, we should maintain the dialectical dynamics and balance that enables unity and diversity coexist. We do so because community and global peace is not merely the presence of unity and absence of diversity, and vice versa. Global peace is a God-given, a divine gift to the human family which subsists in unity in diversity. Now, I would like to touch upon some of the commonly held principles and values in Christian tradition that foster and promote community and global peace. In the first place, peace is part and parcel of the Christian religion. The ideal of peace is a fundamental principle of Christianity. The topic of peace is very prominent in the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Jesus' gift to his disciples was, peace be with you. Apostle Paul tells us that Jesus Christ is our peace, and that the good news of Jesus is the gospel of peace. For the Christian, the proclamation of the gospel of peace is not an option. It is indeed a divine imperative that must be realized. Secondly, the Christian tradition promotes the value of universal brotherhood for all men and women. The story of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10 is a response to the question, who is my neighbor? Christ, before that, had said that you should love your neighbor as yourself. And the question now before him, who is my neighbor? He now told the story of the Good Samaritan. Basically, following that story, the story of the Good Samaritan tells me that my neighbor is you. My neighbor is the person, the man or woman that needs me here and now. So that there is a given for us to apply in our life in order to pursue world peace. Thirdly, in his message of the 1st of January 1968, Pope Paul VI invited the whole world to observe a World Day of Peace. He wrote, "We address ourselves to all men of goodwill to exhort them to celebrate the Day of Peace throughout the world on the first day of the year, January 1, 1968. He continues, It is our desire then that every year this commemoration be repeated as a hope and as a promise at the beginning of the calendar, which measures and outlines the path of human life in time, that peace with its just and beneficent equilibrium may dominate the development of events to come." Since 1968, the celebration of the world peace has become an important value in the Christian tradition. And so on the 1st of January of every year, the Pope often offers to the world a message that outlines some specific challenge to global peace, suggesting some realistic way to resolve it. So these papal messages that are there for us on the World Day of Peace form a resource materials for all men and women who are animators and builders of peace in the local and global communities. In the fourth place, our vision for peace is based on the principles of social teaching, the social teaching of the Catholic Church, which are clearly articulated in the documents of the Second Vatican Council and those documents that have come to us after the Second Vatican Council. Now, for us in Nigeria, we not only think about the principles and values based on our faith traditions, we try to do something. And so we think globally, but our action is often locally. And so here I would like to indicate some of the ways we use religious principles and values to promote peace in Nigeria. In Nigeria today, there are many faith-based groups that are involved in the promotion of peaceful coexistence and religious tolerance. At the national level is the Nigeria Interreligious Council, NIREC. It is a religious council that is composed of 50 eminent Nigerian leaders, religious leaders. These leaders meet 4 times during the year to discuss matters about peace in the country, advising the federal government, state government on how to resolve community conflicts and religious problems. Also, I would like to mention here that we have the excellent example of their eminences, namely the Sultan of Sokoto and the Cardinal Archbishop of Abuja. These great Nigerians have worked very hard over the years to ensure that there is a peaceful coexistence in our own country. And all of them, they come together without hiding their own religious values and principles. They try to bring them together because those principles basically, if you understand them very well, you will see that they are there for building up the human community, creating peace amongst us. Furthermore, the Catholic Church in Nigeria is a major stakeholder in promoting peace And so the Department of Mission and Dialogue of the Bishops' Conference of Nigeria has been engaged in dialogue with Muslims on issues of peace and reconciliation in the community. And so this year, the department hosted a colloquium on peace and reconciliation. That was in March. And then in September this year, there was an interactive session with stakeholders of dialogue, Muslims and Catholics. So I should like to mention also some of the efforts of my diocese, namely the Catholic Diocese of Kano, in promoting peace in our community. And so through our Diocesan Justice and Peace Commission, we engage in building peace in Kano, coordinating activities geared towards positive change in human conditions like poverty, disease, religious bigotry, and ethnic discrimination, as well as electoral malpractices and injustice. And when we do this, we do not do it alone. So we will have the various NGOs, and I would like here to mention the Federation of Muslim Women, Form 1. We also work with the JNI, Jamaat Nasr Islam Women, the NGO in Kano. And there are other groups that we work with in order to realize peace in our own community. So I would like here to thank Global Peace Foundation Nigeria for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of the faith principles and values that inspire us to work for peace in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend, for sharing your experience in Nigeria. And for the next speaker, I would like to invite Dr. Umar Muhammad Al-Khatib. He's an Executive Director of Islamic Affairs Sector for the Islamic Affairs and Charitable Activities Department in Dubai. Dr. Umar Al-Khatib is Executive Director of Islamic Affairs Sector in the Islamic Affairs and Charitable Activities Department in Dubai, and responsible for creating and developing initiatives to modernize and expand access to resources to the general populace. He was Coordinator General of the Dubai International Peace Conference and Head of Media Committee of Islamic Fiqh Conference. Dr. Al-Khatib has both a Doctorate of Principles of Jurisprudence and Doctorate of Islamic Studies from the renowned Al-Azhar University. The floor is yours. Thank you.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أخواني وأخواتي, first thing, I want to thank everybody and the person who has invited us to come and share here and be part of this Global Peace Conference and Convention for 2013. Also, maybe you'll ask why I'm wearing this one. I'm wearing this one because it's United Arab Emirates flag, and before 4 days it was our national day in United Arab Emirates. So we were celebrating this day and celebrating also that we have in United Arab Emirates, we got Expo 2020. And this invitation for all of you to come and share us that day. Today, firstly, I wanted to speak in Arabic, but some of my friends, they told me, if you want, your speech be more benefit, it's better to speak in English. And as you know, maybe our studies always in Arabic. Sometimes there will be some dumps in my speech also. So forgive me. Today I want to speak about something or a subject. It's affects to everybody, regardless the religion or the nationality or the language. So that subject is ethics. In Islam religion, there is many points and many words of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in Quran also is there teaching us the importance of the ethics. The understanding of ethics, the concept of ethics understanding refers to the collective social and behavior. The idea is to know right and the wrong. That's the main part of the ethics, to know the right and the wrong, good and bad, and define the relationship with others in such a way as to fulfill his spiritual and social existence within a world shared with others, as to live in the best possible way for all of us. The importance of ethics and moral in Islam. The emphasis on ethics for the building of the human being in general. The real value of a human being is his own action and behavior, and not his color, race, handsomeness, any other things, money or anything else, but one thing only, his behavior, his action. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessing be upon him, said, "Verily Allah does not look to your bodies nor to your faces, but he looks to your hearts." This is the main part. The relationship between belief, worship, and morals. Islam consists of beliefs and practices, the 5 pillars of duties and the 6 pillars of beliefs, which can be considered to the core of Islam. Belief without practice is incomplete, and the practice without belief is invalid. The effect of good morals on individual and society. That's, I think, it's clear for everybody. Ethics has been urged by almost all religion and advocated by most reformers. Okay. Doing good to other people is not only a just thing to do, but it is actually part of Iman. Let us see and hear what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should be generous to his neighbor. Treat his neighbor with kindness, with the honesty, with all way of goodness. And whoever believes in Allah and Judgment Day should be generous to his guest. Ethics is basis of nation progress and success. قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. Ethics is core of humanity and the foundation of civilization. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained the importance of ethics and moral in Islam in most of his speech. When he said, I was sent but to complete good morals. There is an account of the Prophet's companion, Umar al-Khattab, radiyallahu ta'ala an, who used to take care of old blind woman. Okay, so I'll there's only 5 minutes, so I'll be more faster in this, also in this story. It's a story, small story. Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala an, he was taking care of one blind woman in Medina. And he was going to take care of her and make food for her and clean her house because she was very old woman and blind. Sometimes when he was going there, somebody has come and he was seeing everything is in order in her house. So he was amazed. What's that? Who's doing this one before me? So he decided to, to see who's that man. When he was sitting there away of her house, he has seen his friend and his brother Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala an. He was the person who was going and taking care of this woman before him. And who is Abu Bakr? He was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was the second person in Islam, and after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was dead. Abu Bakr, he was the Khalifa. So imagine the two most important companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam racing to help an old blind woman at night at the edge of the city. Why? Why are they doing this? They understood what's the meaning of being a Muslim. They understood what's the mean to be a mu'min believer. They understood the saying, this is the most important word in my speech. What's that? The best of people is the best of them to the people. So, the criteria of ethics in Islam, and also we'll go forward more also. And the main thing in the criteria is avoid harming others. And the second one is do and say good thing and try benefit others. The third thing is be patient and avoid returning insults. The fourth, counter evil with goodness. The fifth, treat enemies as if they were friends. And this one is the best thing and is the hardest one. Moral are powerful motivators. Most human life of an individual revolves around his ethic and moral. And the most important moral values, respect of human life, and more also is there. The first question is, are morals obtainable and correctable? Yes, indeed. The solution and the way forward for humanity and human being, the Islam moral education contributes directly and eminently to the development of individual, society, and civilization. What we need for a better today and future. Okay, in the last minute, there is many things we need to do in the order to have good life nowadays and better future for humanity. Many things also we can do it. But finally, I would like to stress that good manners have a clear impact on the community, and they are well received by all members of society, and the ethical person are respected and looked up to. Ethics are not theoretical, they are practical and affect our everyday life at homes, in the neighborhood, and everywhere. Each of us should ask himself this question: am I being the best I can be to my family, to my parents, to my children, to my friends, to my neighbor, to my brother and sister, to my society and humanity? So, at last, I know it's finished zero, yeah. At last, there is always room for improvement in our life. But one thing, it depends on you. It depends on you, on me, on everybody. Are we willing to try? Are we going to try? We ask Allah to guide us to the truth and make us good for ourselves, societies, and all humanity. Ameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Umar Al-Khatib, who reminded us about the importance of ethics. And there was a saying in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And we had not sent you except for rahmatan lil alamin, blessings to the entire universe. So before I forget, our Reverend John actually was representing the Cardinal of Nigeria. Yeah, I forgot to mention about that. Yeah, it's very important. And I think we'll go to the fourth speaker, and I would like to invite Dr. Narendra Jain, who has served as India ambassadors to the United Nations, the European Union, Mexico, Nepal, Belgium, and as India's Secretary of the Ministry of External Affairs. Dr. Jain was invited to participate at the Parliament of World Religions in 1993 in Chicago and in Cape Town in 1999, and was a distinguished representative of India at both the United Nations Spiritual Summit in New York in the year 2000 and the UN Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. He is the author of several books on spirituality and Jain religion and philosophy. We'd like to welcome Dr. Jain.
Friends, I heard from a friend of mine who often goes to international conferences, and he said to me that all that happens at conferences is you meet, greet, eat, and retreat. But I'm glad the convention in which I am participating in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, is different. Here we meet, greet, eat, wisdom treat, and retreat. I have benefited a lot from the wisdom generated from the speeches of colleagues who have preceded me, and that has encouraged me to interact with you with some of my own experiences on this very important theme of global ethics for inclusive and moderate societies. So far as India is concerned, unity in diversity has been in the bloodstream of Indian people. India has had for ages pluralistic spiritual legacy. It has been home, birthplace of three major ancient religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. In addition to that, Christianity, Islam, Sikhism, Zoroastrianism, and host of other faiths have found roots and have enriched India's spiritual legacy of tolerance, which is common to all religions. That is the point, how we can have unity in diversity. Tolerance, compassion, piety, forgiveness, charity, and generosity. freedom to pursue one's own faith, and interfaith coexistence have been the hallmarks of multidimensional Indian cultural heritage. Friends, so far as global ethics are concerned, and I come to my second point, three great icons of global ethics, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Nelson Mandela. To Nelson Mandela, President Nelson Mandela, we are paying tributes today because he is no more. And he has joined the two other icons. And the three icons, Gandhi, Mandela, and Martin Luther King, have been the real pace setters for unity in diversity. Not merely in thoughts and philosophy, but they have shown by their experiments in respective countries which were not local in character, but global in impact. And it is this we need to take into account in determining what goes into global ethics. So far as global ethics are concerned, I believe that there are three basic principles, three fundamental pillars of global ethics. And they were recognized in 1993 at the Parliament of World Religions in Chicago, USA, where I had the benefit of participating and speaking, and also in drafting the declaration for the summit there. And there they recognized 3 points. One was the power of non-violence in peace building. Escalative incidents of violence in all walks of life, we all know, has served to sharpen disharmony, intolerance, hatred, animosity, injustice, exploitation, and oppressive discrimination. Inter-religious conflicts, among others, have eroded trust among people at community, national, and global levels. Mahatma Gandhi took the first initiative in global history to show the courage and power of non-violence. He mobilized, he led India's peaceful non-violent struggle for independence through mass peaceful mobilization. Peaceful mass mobilization, irrespective of what religion you belong to, what caste you belong to, what language you belong to. And he took, that is unity in diversity. There was no differentiation of your color, of your caste, of your sex. Everyone came along and fought for the freedom of the country. And along with that, he combined it with social transformation. And he persuaded the people to peacefully accept the social change and embrace those who were oppressed, the untouchables. The untouchables in India, he gave them the name of Harijans, the sons of God, the sons and daughters of God. So he was not merely fighting for the independence of the country from the British rule. That's a political issue. But he also fought for social transformation and brought about a peaceful revolution. And the same example was followed by Martin Luther King, who took the inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi and waged a non-violent struggle against racial discrimination and finally succeeded in it. With Nelson Mandela also, he always regarded Gandhi as his icon because Gandhi started his journey of peace, of fighting for unity and diversity, not in India, but in South Africa. He started in South Africa with that courage of non-violence. That non-violence is stronger in power and strength than even nuclear bombs. He established that. And therefore, Martin Luther King said something which is very relevant for our world today. He said the choice is no longer between non-violence and violence. It is now between non-violence and non-existence. And therefore, as Jain religion recognizes ahimsa, that is non-violence, as the supreme religion, I think it should be a fundamental pillar of global ethics. There are two other points, fundamental pillars. The second is power of non-possession and self-restraint, non-attachment. Don't be accumulative, don't be possessive at the individual level, at the societal level, at the national level. Share whatever you have with others. As Gandhi used to say famously, the earth has enough for human need, but very little for human greed. And if we are facing problems, it is because we are pursuing greed. Greed, because we want to exploit our neighbor and eat his share of food. We want to exploit another neighboring country and benefit from that exploitation. We want to have exploitation of all around, thinking that life exists only for us. Therefore, power of non-attachment, non-possession and self-restraint is very necessary. It is also very necessary in order to conserve the nature, environmental preservation, because of environmental pollution, environmental degradation, we are facing problems which affect global ethics, which affect our moral, which leads us to abuse the natural resources. Therefore, what is important is that for global ethics, we imbibe the principle that we haven't inherited this earth and its resources from our ancestors, but we have borrowed it from our children, and we must leave them richer and not poorer for the next generations to follow. That is the important point of our self-restraint. The third point is, the third pillar is power of non-absolutism. That is, in Sanskrit it is called anekant. That is, you don't take an extremist position or a die-hard position that what I am saying is right. You must appreciate, learn to appreciate, learn to respect, learn to regard, learn to see the better part of the views of others, whether they are of individuals, whether they are of countries. Everyone must be having some merit in whatever he is insisting upon. And if you find that if all of us take to this open-minded attitude of building synthesis and cooperation in place of confrontation and hostility, we would be living in a much better world. There won't be any religious conflict, there won't be any national conflict, there won't be any social conflict, provided we develop this habit of anekant, that is non-alignment, and which is at the roots of what we now commonly call peaceful coexistence. But peaceful coexistence in global ethics must not stop at peaceful coexistence only. That's a very static concept. We must have peaceful co-prosperity. If there is co-prosperity of all religious communities, of all linguistic communities, of all ethnic communities, we would be in for a better world. Because after all, these three principles, non-violence, non-attachment, and non-absolutism, form the very basis of human philosophy and way of life. Religions must become a way of life. Religions must not prescribe only solutions to what happens to you after your life. Emancipation is everyone's aim, but what we need, religion says, they should show how we live first as better human beings. The second point, I come now to the second pillar, and that is having defined the fundamental pillars of global ethics. How do we operationalize it, which is very important. How do we operationalize global ethics? And that is, there are 4 pillars of that. That is social empowerment, through social empowerment. And social empowerment is based on 4 fundamental pillars. One is compassion, second is emancipation, third is education, and fourth is ethics promotion. And these are the 4 points we need to emphasize. And in compassion, it is only he is alive who lives for others. Others are more dead than alive. Mother Teresa's example I'll give while closing. When I was ambassador in Nepal, she came there and she insisted on going to old person's home, where she saw around 20 old persons lying, frail, awaiting their death because their families had forsaken them. They had sent them there near a famous temple, Pashupatinath, so that they could have the darshan, of God before they die. She went there, and I saw how she went round all those 20 people and looked after them, cared for them, and they felt that someone had come at long last to give them a little love. And on those frail faces, little smile appeared, a flicker of a smile appeared. And Mother Teresa told me, Ambassador Jain, this is the reward of compassion. I know I can't relieve them of their illness, I can't prevent them from dying, but they will meet their death now with a smile that someone at least loved them. So let us do things where we can leave this feeling among our neighbors that we love them, we care for them, and that is the basic groundwork for establishing unity in diversity as well as the fundamental global ethics. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Dr. Jain. He reminded us the importance of basically a non-violent movement, and he cited about 3 main leaders for this non-violent movement: Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Nelson Mandela as well. And basically, he reminded me of a phrase by Mahatma Gandhi himself, which says that you have to be the change you want to see in this world. So if you want to see a better future for this world, we have to be the change. And with that, I think I would like to invite the last speaker, last but not least, Ambassador Azmat Hassan, a former Pakistani ambassador to Malaysia, Syria, and Morocco. Is a senior faculty associate of the John Whitehead School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall University, specializing in Middle Eastern studies. His distinguished 33-year career includes various postings within the Pakistani Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Prime Minister's Office, focusing on tension in Afghanistan. Hassan also served as a Deputy Permanent Representative of Pakistan to the United Nations and Ambassador of Pakistan to Malaysia, Syria, and Morocco. The floor is yours, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for this introduction. I'm really grateful to the organizers of this colloquium, where I think most of us participants and everybody else really has added to their knowledge and has rounded up their views and modulated their views about the stage of society that we are in. And the invitation to me permitted me to revisit Kuala Lumpur, which in a sense was my first ambassadorial assignment. So, I went down memory lane, which is, it's nice to do that every now and then. Thank you to the organizers for having given me this opportunity. If we look at society today in anthropological terms very broadly, parts of our planet follow an inclusivist policy, and other parts are peoples and societies which are more inward-looking, which anthropologists and others have called exclusivists. And organizations like the GPF are trying to whittle away the exclusivist mindset. And I think that is a very noble and a very laudable ambition. And in this, if we go back in history, I think yesterday it was mentioned by one of the panelists, and even today, it is worth repeating that persons in the past have tried to promote interfaith harmony, interreligious harmony, and a feeling of amity between people of different religions. The example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is very instructive, because in promulgating the Charter of Medina in 621 AD, he was trying to do in the 7th century what we are still trying to perfect and to achieve. And later on, there have been persons in other faith traditions who have similarly tried to inculcate harmony, peace, and tolerance between each other. I have noted one or two people here, which I would be very happy to share with you. The great American statesman and scientist Benjamin Franklin expressed such feelings of toleration towards persons of different faiths in the 18th century, at the time when the United States was becoming independent, and he's on record as having expressed such feelings. Looking at the historical record, one can see that attempts have been made in our time by President Khatami of Iran. He came and addressed Seton Hall University, the only university in the United States which has had the honor of being addressed by an American head of state. I was there in the audience when he spoke about the dialogue among civilizations. That was President Khatami's idea in 1998. But of course, later events, especially the atrocity of 9/11, put paid to that, and the idea could not advance. Later on, the same idea was jointly advanced by the Prime Minister of Spain and the Prime Minister of Turkey in the shape of the alliance among civilizations. So now here from dialogue, we have moved to alliance, which is a progression. I think the title is much better. Dialogue means that, okay, we talk with each other, and then we don't know what the end result be. But when we use the word alliance, it means that that type of amity and cohabitation is possible for people from of different cultures and different faiths. And this alliance among civilizations, I think, has done very well in the last 7 or 8 years, that it has been working to inculcate among people that this type of cooperation with each other, this type of commonality which exists among people of different faiths, is entirely possible. And it is something that all people of goodwill should embrace. So these are some of the things that the Global Peace Foundation is already trying to work on, to build upon, and this is something that all of us can support. There are 2 other examples which I want to quote to you about attempts at the type of building up the a type of global ethic that we all want. And one of them that I noted when I was trying to prepare this a little presentation of mine was the Amman Declaration, espoused by King Abdullah II of Jordan in 2004. Now, if you look at this document, it is also an attempt to reach out to persons of other faiths. And once you read the text, I think all people of rationality and goodwill would support King Abdullah's efforts. Karen Armstrong is that other very well-known interfaith expert. 2 or 3 years ago, she came out with a charter of compassion. Now, the word compassion is very important. It has just been mentioned by one of our fellow panelists in respect of Mother Teresa. It is compassion which human beings have. There is a need for this compassion which is inborn. It is almost genetic, in our genetic makeup, not to be subsumed by other emotions. We, as thinking human beings, as sentient human beings, as being the noblest creation of God's creation, Almighty God's creation, as the Quran tells us, we have a right to put forward our compassionate nature with each other, to look after the needy, the orphan, the destitute, the less well endowed with resources, and all the major religions teach us to do that. The other point I want to make is that the stage of society that we are in today, the role of governments is becoming more and more difficult as more and more issues come up before governments. There is climate change, there is environment, there is migration, and it is not possible for governments to fulfill the needs of all its citizens, or even to ameliorate the agenda in front of them. Therefore, civil society has to come to fill this vacuum. And 2 examples that I can give you quickly where civil society has been successful, and again, this should be an inspiration to all of us, and also a pointer towards the Global Peace Federation, which is already doing so much to try to emulate what civil society has achieved. One is the banning of the landmines, that horrible instrument of warfare. And that was done through an agglomeration, a connection of NGOs, civil society in action. And the lady who spearheaded this effort, Jody Williams, she won the Nobel Prize for Peace. The other example which I have noted here is the establishment of the International Criminal Court. Now, that was a civil society effort. So now, our leaders who are bent upon, some leaders who are bent upon doing criminal actions, state terrorism, hunting down people, engaging in warfare without any cause, our politicians and our leaders will think twice before they do this, because they will be fearful that they will be hauled up before the International Criminal Court at The Hague, as some leaders already have suffered this fate. So these are remarkable successes of civil society. And civil societies have to unite, different NGOs have to unite, and they have to use the synergy which exists among all of us to be able to build up the type of society that we all want. If we just lay back and say, oh, government should do this, government should do this, government should do this, we are being prescriptive, but we are not taking the next step, which is that we are not trying to be, or we are not focusing on being the change that we want. Change has to come from each of us. So if, one person, one group, one community, one NGO, combining with other NGOs can do really remarkable things. 2 examples when we come back to terrorism. In Spain, there was a Basque separatist movement. The Basque people felt separate. And it is civil society which has marginalized their activities. the Basques among them. Once they killed a policeman, and 30,000 Basque people came out in northern Spain. The Basques live in northern Spain, and they condemned their own fellow Basques. And so that had a very salutary effect. In Northern Ireland, the same thing happened, that the violence of 20 or 30 years dwindled and led to an agreement finally when the Catholics in Northern Ireland stopped supporting such extremist activities. So civil society, if it bands together and moves together, can eradicate violence, if not eradicate it, ameliorate it, and lessen it. These are some of the brief comments that I want to put before you. I don't know if I've exceeded my 12 minutes. I've tried my best to be as quick as possible. And I really want to thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Azmat Hassan. And I guess it's time to open the floor. Please be very brief with your question. I guess they've taken about 10 minutes. I guess you should not take more than 1/10 of that. So we'll take about, say, 3 questions first. Yes, please. And yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. Very enlightening. Just very briefly about the situation.
Yourself first.
Myself. My name is Dr. Kamar. I'm the director of the International Center for Alliance Association of International Economy. Is it working? Yeah. Is it working? I think it's all right. I'm a lecturer. I speak well. Regarding extremism, just at one point I want to point out. I think what is going on is working on the mic. What is going on is, I think I was asked the same question, why are we in such a mess? With all our religious commitment and our goodwill, why are we in such a mess? So my short answer on the spot, I think because we have shifted from the worshipping of God to the worshipping of religion. We are more concerned about religion, we are more concerned about our community, we are more concerned about our sect, we forgot God. So, one very brief, on-the-spot sort of suggestion is we come back to the worshipping of God and not to the worshipping of religion. Religion is to be practiced. God and only God is to be worshipped. God is the ultimate destination. Divinity is the ultimate destination. Nirvana is the ultimate destination. Moksha, my field is comparative religion, by the way, is the ultimate destination. Religion is just the path, the road, and there are many paths and many roads. Spirituality is the vehicle that we moved along. The doctrines and dogmas are the signboards to help us on. But if you get obsessed with the dogmas and the doctrines, the signboards, we never move onto the road, the path, the religion. If you get obsessed with the road and the path, we never move our sight towards our final destination. If we get involved with our spirituality, which is the vehicle, then we may even end up by worshipping ourselves, because spirituality is ours. So my suggestions, my dear friends, we cannot go on like this. Let's all come back to the worshipping of God and just practice our religion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kamar. I would, yeah.
Nuclear power and climate change mainly is in the area of the more developed, affluent countries. I was listening tightly to our brother who just mentioned about these landmines and the civil society has done a great deal in that direction. Maybe this forum, this global peace forum, can start the ball rolling. We can try, and we may succeed, addressing these two issues on nuclear power and climate change to the more developed countries. Because even in the latest, I think, United Nations conference, they shied away from it. Our own Filipino delegate to that confab was in the company of many other nations, putting conscience to these developed countries, but I think they did not take it that seriously. So maybe this forum can address this, and we will be worthy of the next generation, sort of guardians, as we today, which will be our children in the future, are mere trustees of our environment and of our society. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, brother. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
My name is Muhammad Nurain Ashafa. Oh, anybody can hear me? Yeah. Muhammad Nurain Ashafa. I think. Thank you. My name is Muhammad Nurain Ashafa from Nigeria. I have just two questions. The first one for the religious leaders, and the second one for our diplomatic brothers within the diplomatic community. For the religious leaders, we have spoken extensively about the values and virtue of coexistence and the ethics of respecting the other. But you move down to the issue of the pedagogy, which is our religious test, looking at the madrasa and the young seminarians. Because the seminary, the affairs, the ethics, and the teaching is really preserved for a very exclusive, the I, in building the identity of who you are for your own student and fellowships. And Brother Umar, I'm very happy here, and Shamsid Ali, in terms of, you are talking about another narratives, but you talk about the ethics. What are the practical truths from your experience that address the issue of the sort of extremism, betrayal, and abuse of these ethics within our religious tradition? What you have seen in action as a model, no matter whether it is in a small level, that can be used to address this about 70% to 80% of our religious leaders who fall into the category of incapable religious leaders or the mischievous religious leaders who politicize religion on that particular aspect. What are the practical tools you have to us to help us in practically dealing, or that have worked in your community or in your nations in dealing with people who abuse this test practically from their own point of view? And for our diplomatic brothers' experience, we know about track 2 diplomacy and the effort in track 2 diplomacy ongoing. But how do you deal with these big brothers, with this state terrorism committed? You mentioned about state terrorism all over going on. What are from your experience, you talk of alliance of civilization, it's a big thing there. The ordinary imam or the pastor or the priest on the ground there's a disconnection between an other alliance for civilizations or the dialogue across civilizations and other things. Of course, the compassionate city is ongoing now. It's a new phenomenon, which is a very good one. We appreciate that. But looking at the reality of state-sponsored terrorism, which gave birth to so many victims, so many culprits who will be victims or not victims, who are getting the ticket of going to ICC Now, what practical tools in some of these nation states, either it has worked halfway, that can really be to check politicization of religion, hijacking our religious values and ethics by the political actors in our society today? How do we really check? What modus, in your own experience, have worked or can work to check our political actors who are derailing the human family into something else? Thank you very much.
First, thank you so much for that wonderful questions from the sister. I think I just want to thank you personally, because what basically you mentioned is my point. and that and instead of worshiping God, many people today worshiping their affiliations. And I think that is because of the claimed absolute interpretation of the truth. And as I said yesterday, that when we claim that we are absolute in our interpretation, we take the position of God, who has become God. We claim as God. And in fact, there is only one God, as we believe. All right, so thank you very much. But I would like to address about the factors of extremism in our communities. In my view, there are at least 4 factors that need to be taken into our consideration. Number 1 is the media itself, how media basically contributes negatively into religious views, where when you have some positive in the community, almost you don't see that on the front page of media. But when, for example, I receive Jews coming to our mosque, Christian leaders coming to our mosque, I embrace them as brothers, all right? Our sisters embrace as sisters. You don't see that on the front page of New York Times. But when a small imam in Peshawar somewhere talk badly about Jews, you will see that on the front page of New York Times. So media contribute greatly into this tension. Secondly, politics. And I don't mean to discuss about relation between religion and politics, but in many ways we are politicizing religion for political purpose. And the issue of Park 51, the mosque near Ground Zero, for example, it was not an issue in New York until someone politicized it. In Muslim world, for example, also, religion had been used for political purposes. The denial of Holocaust, for example, is nothing to do with Muslims, nothing to do with Islam, but it's something to do of political interest in certain countries. Okay? And then we come to the religious tax, and I would like to respond to my brother Imam Ashafa on this. I think one of our dilemma is the lacking of political will of the imams to learn further. And I can mention my own personal transformations. Studied in madrasa, then went to Pakistan for 7 years, studied at the International Islamic University during the invasion of Soviet Union to Afghanistan. So you can see the heat of jihad in Afghanistan during those years. And then I lived in Saudi Arabia for 3 years, a very exclusive society, and finally I was destined to move to New York. At that time, I had a neighbor, happened to be an Irish Catholic. And every morning he came out from his house cleaning his driveway and mine. In the beginning, I was suspicious. What do you want? Probably he wanted to show, to attract me to his faith. And for months and months, nothing happened. And my kids called them grandpa, grandma. We became brothers and sisters. This is the people who cried when September 11 happened. He came to me, embraced me, and he said, my young brother, I don't believe. So what do you mean you don't believe? I don't believe that Muslims did it. What do you mean? He said, because you are Muslim, right? If the Muslims like yourself, they will never do that. This is what changed us. So we need to transform ourselves. And there are many ayat, there are many Bibles, verses also, that tend to hijack us unless we are very wise in understanding them. And I mentioned one of those. وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودَ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ لَا تَتَّخِذُ الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَى أَوْلِيَاءَ. For example, that simplistically some Muslims translate into do not be friends with Jews and Christians. So how I can live in the United States with Jews to my right, Christians to my left, Hindus to in front of me, and Buddhists behind me. If I say that non-Jews are a threat to me, how am I going to live in this 21st century, in the globalized world? So I think the imams must have that political will to listen and learn further.
The question that you pose a very pertinent one. And my answer is threefold. One is that tackling terrorism and incidents of increasing violence has to be a joint task of both government and civil society. You cannot do it only, you can't lay the blame only on government or only on civil society. The two have to realize the gravity of the situation and tackle it at the roots, which has not been tackled. Terrorism has been a product of long time suffering of people in poverty, backwardness, lack of education and ignorance, illiteracy. This is true of all these areas, and I know from my experience in India, in some of the Naxal infected areas, terrorist infected areas within the country, that wherever some social workers as well as district collectors, that is those who represent the government, have worked together to persuade the people to accept the change for the better education for their children, better environment for their living. It has produced results and it has reduced the incidence of violence. It takes time. You have to have enormous patience. But ultimately the world will have to tackle this problem. You cannot simply lay the blame at the door of a religion or the door of superstition. You have to tackle them finally. So at the same time, as Imam Shamsi Ali said, and very correctly, and you also said it, that it is necessary for the religious leaders also to change their attitude and perspective. They are not merely religious leaders. They should become spiritual leaders. And spirituality unites all the religions and works for social reform and social transformation. That is briefly my answer to your question. Would you like to add?
Very quickly, 2 points. Of course, a question from this side, very pertinent. You might remember that on climate change, the Greenpeace International Organization has been, for many years, at the forefront of civil society efforts. And they were trying to protest against Russia's opening up the Arctic wild refuge, the Arctic areas, which are pristine areas. And it could lead to a lot of ecological damage. But then materialism or the desire for more assets or wealth, I don't know what is the motivation. So yes, if Greenpeace can do it, we can see the synergy which can happen if 10, 15, 20 other organizations join it. Even Mr. Putin will have to do something about it. Nuclear weapons, there is a double standard. Under the 1968 treaty, the nuclear weapons powers, the 5 recognized nuclear weapon powers had to dismantle their nuclear weapons. They haven't done so. They've got thousands of warheads, and everybody is concentrating on Iran, which has got 0 warheads. So here you see, double standards, and civil society should take them to task and say, why don't you follow the treaty? And if you want other nations not to become, to get nuclear weapons, which is a very good thing, that no nation should have nuclear weapons. But then you should look within your own self and, and have a uniform policy. Thank you.
Well, I would like to make 2 short comments. One is concerning the question of, question that has to do with extremism. Well, for me, extremism requires a context. It is only within a context that it thrives. If there is no context, you wouldn't get it. And so, in many situations, we simply reduce everything perhaps to religion and so on. But when you look at it, in situations of in which extremism is expressed, Christian extremists or Muslim extremists or whatever, traditionalists or even political, there are always issues that have not been addressed by the leaders of the community or the country. You often will have the situation of a situation in which there is a massive abuse of human rights, a situation in which there is massive injustice. You have a situation in which bad people continue to say and do bad things and nobody calls them to account for whatever they do. And so when you look at the context, you see that the context is there for terrorism to produce. And unfortunately, because religion is such that people use it to tell the whole world that they are really working hard. And so extremists would always like to tell the world that they are great Christians or they are great Muslims and so on. They are fighting for Islam or fighting for Christianity. And that is the unfortunate thing. So for us, I think we need to work on the context. We have to ensure that we change various indices within the, social indices within the context, such that we can reduce incidents of religious extremism or even political extremism and so on. In our country, in Nigeria, you have the question of Boko Haram, and Boko Haram people, for me, they have used religion as a way of articulating certain grievances they have, heard from the community. You have had people who perhaps were mistreated by the security services, people who perhaps were not treated by their even religious superiors. And so the response is a violence that is kind of articulated through religious ideas and concepts. The other point here raised by Imam Ashafa, it has to do, he has a question what we're doing with children information. For us, we have those who are in major seminaries, and before you finish your studies, you must have done a lot of work on interreligious dialogue. That is very crucial. You have to do programs and pass them. And then for the junior ones, there are programs too for them at all levels, at the parish level, the local church community, as well as the school where they are being formed. And so there is much work that is done there. And of course, there are seminars that are organized regularly and workshops for various groups within our society, within our, I'm talking of the church now. And those workshops are there to help these young people grow, to understand their roles within the community. And even in some of the schools that we have, we include what we call the civic programs, programs that are there to teach all the children, regardless of their religion. You teach them what their rights are. So those things are there, but very often you will have to seek the consent of parents, because there are times when they are being informed about their rights. Some parents probably will think that, the children are not supposed to know that. If they know that, perhaps they'll begin to ask us questions about the way we relate with them and so on. But the thing is something is being done. And when it has to do with dialogue, as Dr. Jen, I think, he mentioned there that it's not sufficient to just talk about dialogue. If you talk about dialogue, there is always a problem of abusing the situation, in which dialogue now becomes a forum for talk shops. People just go there and they talk, again, eat and drink and rest, and then after that go home, do nothing. And at times they don't even pass the information horizontally. They don't even pass it, and if they don't pass it horizontally, they don't pass it vertically. You see, so, and that becomes a problem. And if all of us leaders, who every time I engage in dialogue, are sincere with ourselves, we sincerely discuss issues that are meant for peace. And then we commit ourselves to ensuring that our discussions reach many people as possible, then we can move forward. We can move forward. And in our own country, we have seen some of our leaders just doing that. But there are also many leaders who are not doing it. Thank you.
Okay, I think for the interest of time, because the next session is at 4:30, we have to conclude the session. I would like to thank you, all the panelists, and all of you for attending this session. And inshallah, we'll meet you again after this. Thank you.